he may want to chop the wood very quickly, but the skill and how he uses the axe could either chop the wood well or get unnecessarily many blisters. One who unskillfully holds the axe handle will hold the handle very tightly, and therefore, before he could do any chopping of the wood, he could cause a lot of little blisters or some hurt in the hand. At the same time, if he holds the handle of axe too loosely, he might not hit the axe on the wood at all. If he did, maybe even the handle might drop. So who knows where the axe will drop, where. So there are two extremes in whatever we do. One could be very rigid, like the holding very tight, and one could be very lax and holding too loosely. So this topic suggests that there is a middle ground where we can use things. So the mindfulness, therefore, is able to look and at the same time see. If you see, then you know you will learn something as how to aim for the purpose for which your task is being executed. And hence, one will develop the danger of rigidity or tightness of the grip, or looseness of grip. Yeah. One will learn. Of course, the only way to learn is firstly doing the two opposites unconsciously, of course. You don't get blisters by chopping wood because you knew how to chop the wood. First, you don't know how to chop the wood, therefore you hold the handle too tightly. And then you realize you have to do it a little loosely. And in the end, then only you learned how to avoid the two extremes. So therefore, we have look, see, and then learn, and fourth is then change. And then you actually change by modifying how you hold the axe. I use that as an analogy. There are a number of things we do in life that we have been a bit too rigid, that we have been too either lax. As a result of that, we found a lot more pain or difficulties than we have expected them to be. So mindfulness is about developing quality of perceiving something clearly. That is what looking is doing. And then seeing, meaning what was it that we did last time, or what is it that we said or felt that was too rigid or too fundamentalist, too bossy, or too controlling as an attitude. So we will be, as a result, looking, we will see from past activities what were there that could be relaxed. And so that's looking makes us to see things. And then seeing empowers us to learn not to do those, but to modify our mode of action. And then, therefore, we learn. We learn basically from past experiences. And then we begin to change. So with the benefit of each of our time being on this earth, from however many years till today, we would have done a lot of chopping of wood. I'm sure you have successfully chopped some wood. At other times you have got unnecessarily many blisters. And while you try to use the wood, you have more blister than you can enjoy the wood. There's a lot of hurts and pains people have. So that could be a very simple definition of mindfulness, becoming fully aware of the mind and its potential as far as looking, meaning delegating the mind. To look means it has an object to which it should be focused. And here the mindfulness refers to not man object is not the object, but mind itself. Yeah? Mind itself should be fully aware of its perceivings, its seeings, whether its seeing is validly concurrent, validly what the object is, or what it is totally mere perception. Perception and perceived are sometimes different. So the mind has to be fully aware whether we are largely seeing something because we have certain emotions or feelings, premeditated feelings or emotions before we saw the thing. And often we are colored by those when we see something. So therefore, when I say look, means when we're looking, are we looking with prejudicial eyes, or are we looking with some kind of tainted feelings and perceptions, and that will color our perception. And as a result of that, what we are seeing may not be the object as it is. It might be simply a result of our own preoccupation. So mind becomes fully aware whether it's our perception or whether the thing actually is. So that's the seeing bit of it. And then when you begin to see this, then you will start to learn the difference between perception and the perceived. They're never identical. And one who is mindfully aware knows that if you think of someone doing this or that, you can see that's what my perception is. That is my perception is, rather than thinking that's the thing is. So benefit of mindfulness, we become aware of our own perception, knowing that is our mental analysis and mental data that we can best put in our mind. A lot of the time people are not mindful, thinks it is the object. So it becomes objectful. They think it's the object, nothing to do with my mind, and therefore allow to lose the whole grip to the object and let the mind believe it's the object. So we can draw some examples later when we look at some of the other features of mindfulness. Second topic of this is the causes of mindfulness. If that's the definition of mindfulness, the causes of mindfulness is, in order for us to be able to be mindful that it is our mind that is perceiving and thinking that, rather than what the object is, to be able to distinguish from, to be able to know our own perception distinct from the perceived, we have to be calm. So the causes of mindfulness is calmness. We have to have a certain calm environment of the mind. Calm meaning absence of turbulence, absence of extreme aversion or greed or hatred or any of the negativities. This is what I mean by our perception is mainly colored by our mind. If we are calm, there is absence of calmness will register the resolution of the object as it is. But when our mind is a little bit tainted by our fear or doubt or suspicion or resentment, then it will influence our mentality. As a result of that, we wouldn't get the clear picture. It's like a camera out of focus. So this is what I mean. The causes of mindfulness is calmness. Now, calmness is not a natural conditioning. Calmness is a conscious act of pacifying the mind of certain destructive thoughts, feelings, and negative emotions. So the person has to create the causes that he is mindful, meaning how to free his or her mind of certain negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So mindfulness is a thing to do. And a thing to do. You have to be calm in your mind when you wanted to do something. So when you're calm, the natural outcome of that is you become careful in terms of what you're seeing, how you look, and what kind of information you do gather. So therefore, your information that you gain becomes a little bit assisted by your calmness. You become more careful, particularly when you see something. You see something, whether you're learning to see what you do to them. Usually, if we are not calm, we won't be mindful. And hence, our response would be very ill-chosen. If we are calm, and then we will be more careful, and therefore the word carefulness means we will be choosing a response that is better than few other responses. You see, so therefore your mind have more space, if you like. Calmness, mindfulness gives space to your mind. You know, it says, "Give me some space," and you give the space. And in that spacious state of consciousness, you begin to have more ability to respond positively. This is what I mean by the word responsibility. That we have an ability to choose best response out of several. Now, to be able to be in that, you have to be calm. If you're agitated by some negativities, you do not know any choices. You know, there's only one, and you just fire that, and that's it. And that's called reaction. And often it becomes overreactions. So the cause of mindfulness, therefore, necessarily calmness. So it's not a character. You've got to do it. You've got to form it. You've got to train your mind day by day, a particular way of how to calm. Because you can see sometimes you're more careful than other times, and then when you were careful, what you did was meaningful, and it became cause of your effort meaningfully executed. To whom you did it to, they benefited. We did it. We were happy. As a result of that, we were relishing what we did. We not only relish then, we also will relish thereafter. The benefit is quite overpowering, really. In the end, the opposite is when we are not careful, when we are not calm, we get agitated. So the cause of mindfulness, therefore, is calmness. And with calmness, how do you know it has been, you have actively created calmness rather than passive aggression type of thing. You could be passively thinking that you're calm, but in the meantime, you're just suppressing your feelings without knowing what to do with them, you see. Lots of people pretend they're calm, but in the meantime, they have aversion to whatever is happening. And so here, calmness actually transforms the inner grievances. And as a result of that, it registers carefulness. So the cause of mindfulness is calmness and carefulness. And carefulness meaning if you're careful, you know the result will be like the carefulness. Result will be good, you see. So therefore, there's a lot of optimism in being careful. Person who's mindful is very optimistic and positive. He doesn't lose himself to the situation because there is no situation other than his mind. Now, when he is thinking that, then he's mindful. He has a little piece of paper to put between the mind and the things outside, so that these two doesn't squash each other, like a small partition between two pieces of cake. You know? And you have a little piece of paper in between two cakes. They don't squash on each other. You can still pick the one without spoiling the other. So when you have this is what I call emotional security. I call this mindfulness is a form of emotional security. You can secure yourself from being hurt or making a negative reaction. So that's the causes of mindfulness. If you create the causes, then even causal level, you're already relishing being calm. You're relishing being careful. You're relishing being optimistic. And do you have to doubt the outcome? Probably not, because the results are usually identical to the cause. If the cause is careful and mindfully and done, then the result would be no different, really. It is, because you wouldn't allow things outside to take you over, because there's no things outside that jumps into our space. It's our only mental reading of it. Or lack of poor reading of it. If we are illiterate, which means mindless, in this session, for the sake of that, we are illiterate if we are not mindful. You know, we read many books, but we're still illiterate if we are not mindful. I mean, that's what we're talking about. People can read many books, but still they can't read their mind. Whether they're being careful or destructive or pessimistic or whatever. It doesn't know what its thoughts or feelings are going to do. So, what's the point of reading books? So, best book that is there to read is the mind, and not other people's mind. First, your mind. Read your mind. What is this thought coming from? Where is this going to take me this afternoon or in future, If I follow this thought, it's not good. It's anger, or it's a resentment, it's a guilt, or sadness, or whatever. You can tell it very clearly. And instead, you say, look, if I carefully generate kindness or gratitude, it takes a lot of time to develop gratitude. Means carefulness. You have to, to develop a really gratitude. You need a lot of assistance to make people's help, and your own helpfulness make you grateful. To be ungrateful, you don't need anybody's help. You see, we do it ourselves very well. So you can see, mindfulness requires lot of limbs. All the four legs of the chair is needed. You can't just have one-legged chair. Those directors' chairs, these things around these, they break very quickly, easy to maneuver and you get it out, but they look very shonky. But at least when you have a four-legged chair, at least even one is starting to become loose, at least you know before the three give in. So you got to create the cause. You have to know what are the causes of mindfulness so that you can relish. You can see the cause, meaning when you're careful and calm, then it has an amazing positive impact on the others. It's already changing them. And otherwise, there are two people who are both illiterate. They're reading the book top to bottom. They're holding the back to front or whatever. Lots of people are like that. They just don't know what their mind has been up to. They think they have been some victim of some outside things in their life. They don't realize how much their mind has been the creator of their own situations. Now the mindful, when a person has a beginning of, I would say, discovering the importance of mindfulness, has not only learned to create these causes, calmness, carefulness, and optimism, but also will look at some of the past experiences of one's life where we have not been so mindful, where we have been very negative or vindictive, and then we start to sort of let that go, those thoughts, feelings, and opinions and preoccupations. Then realize, when we calm enough, we can drop. We can surrender weapons to slowly, nobody sees it. You see? When we're not calm, we're still holding the very weapon that harmed us, anger. We're still holding the hand of anger and jealousy or resentment, and without realizing that thing you are holding is hurting you more. But one who's calm, when he knows, he has when the dawning of mindfulness takes in, and then he will slowly let go. Look, I got to get rid of this resentment I have towards him or her or them or myself. This is no cause of happiness. This is being illiterate. This is being careless. This is being mindless. There's no enjoyment whatsoever from this. This has harmed me. This has hurt my relationship, my inability to do this or that, and therefore you have this resolution to get rid of them. So, so mindfulness is safety. What are we talking about mindfulness? We're talking about safety. When you come in the building, the first thing you hear about safety. This exit mark, there's always everywhere. Look at it. Look at this room. There's exit there, there's there. It's always a safety, way to go out just in case. It's safety. So mindfulness is not some kind of religious thing, that you have to have faith in or not, It's, without being religious, we survive very well, probably better. But without mindfulness, you couldn't survive. You could rescue your difficult situations with mindfulness. Even we get lots of help from others, like counselors, or psychologists, therapists. They just simply try to assist us to become safer with ourselves, to soften ourselves, to make peace and have a softer approach to difficulties. We are not able to be softer and more careful if we are not calm. And this is why safety means minimize harm and maximize benefit. If these are a lot of, like, if you by practicing mindfulness, you could see you didn't say that. That came in your mind, that came into your mouth so strong, but you didn't say that at the time because you became mindful. You had a mouthful of word to come out and say, but you have mindfulness, tight-lipped you, and you didn't say it. You were careful where it need to be, and you didn't say it. And what did it do? It minimized harm there and then, and maximized benefit. You're really happy later on you didn't say it. You see? When we are not mindful, what happens is people say carelessly at the time, and then later on they know what they made themselves a fool. They have made themselves a fool, and they have hurt the loved ones or let them lose respect of us or whatever, and then we feel mindless actions are usually comes outputted verbally or physically. Verbally, we are very aggressive and not careful with our words, and physically very aggressive. Not mindful. Mindful person is safety. Safety is the. It's not a question of right or wrong here. Right or wrong is a distraction when when you're mindful. Because most people, when they want to be right, they wanted to prove someone who's wrong, using their rightness, using their righteousness to prove other people wrong. That's not mindfulness. That's completely divisive. That is the one which causes all conflict. Mindful person says, I can become safe by staying right, but if I point someone's wrong, unless I can correct them, I have caused injury to them. So one person is safe, other person has injured, and safe person has injured the other. So what's the benefit of a safe person? The person who is trying to stay safe has actually injured the person, the other. So in the reality, there's two injured persons, isn't it? So mindfulness is to avoid harming either of these two, and therefore benefit both. So that's what very, very important when we say causes. What is the when you're being mindful, you have to say, what is the cause for which I have to be mindful? What is at stake if I'm not mindful? You might upset some people, or you might make yourself a fool of yourself, or whatever. You have positive fear. Mindfulness is positive fear. Being able to invoke kind of a positive fear. If I'm not careful, I can say this and do this. I will make myself hurt and hurt all the loved ones, and therefore it will be not good. And it's a positive fear. It's not a negative fear. It's a very positive fear. That's why I use the word optimism. It's an optimizer of your positive potential, mindfulness. Because therefore, the cause is great, So if you have to pause for a little while until that is crystallized into your mind, you will. That's the calmness. Because if you're not mindful, the cause is forgotten. People usually attack people and then forgot the cause. They thought righteousness was the main cause, and attacking people was no problem. So they attack each other in the meantime, and the cause is forgotten. And then they hurt each other, and the actual issue is nothing really. And that's what they go, hard on people, soft on the problem. When you're mindful, it will be reversed. You'll be hard on the problem, and soft to the people. Now that's safety we're talking about, safety. Safety of not just one, just you and me or two person, but each of us has our circle of concern. They will be affected too by our actions, or skillful action or unskillful action. They become affected. Now, when our cause is to maximize benefit and minimize harm for the two main person as well as their concern of circle of concern, then your cause is bigger, cause is greater, isn't it? You're thinking not just for your own temporary issue, but for the future. So the mindful person is insightful and futuristic. He knows he's creating not only present, but future as well. So people who are patient usually have to be very mindful, because they know they rather forbear this difficulty now for long-lasting benefit. So there's a degree of we'll talk about that specifically in the function of mindfulness, although it seems to be all related. The next topic is the type of mindfulness. Now let's talk about type of mind. Therefore, we shouldn't think that mindfulness is not something we lack. We have. But type of mindfulness, common life skill, success mindfulness, meaning mindfulness that people direct to achieve, to have success in their career or to make a living. Now, quite a lot of people are very good at that. Majority are very good at that. When people talk in Australia, there's 4-degree unemployment. 4% unemployment means almost 96% all working and doing very well in their works and trainings and years of study and training, and they become good at that. So if you really look at it, we have mindfulness. It's just whether that mindfulness is directed to do a good job or have a mindful. So there are lots of mindfulness at our disposal. We have them. Where our heart actually recognizes that, you will find the velocity of mindfulness that we have is quite strong. No one person's mind is greater than anybody. They're all equal. Everybody got same potential. But how much of our potential of mindfulness is used just to succeed materially or ordinarily making a living, or with our overall goodness of us as a human being to make a difference and benefit to others, whether our focus is for our own benefit or whether our focus is for the sake of maybe the rest of your community or for people that you have immediate responsibility to, or at large. So whether the mindfulness is self-centered mindfulness, or mindfulness is a community mindfulness, or mindfulness is at large. So that's why it's good to look at type of mindfulness. Type of mindfulness is best recognized by object with which we are being mindful to, and what is it that we are not developing mindfulness. So here primarily tonight's topic is the mindfulness of using our own mind to the extent that we are able to increase our happiness. We are able to create causes and prompt happiness in others because of our practice of mindfulness. Now that could be with our work, with everything what we do, but primarily almost like we are getting to know this thing called mindfulness in ourselves, and as a result of that, everything we do has an added sacredness and significance with which we do. So we don't have to look at mindfulness of ordinary work as some kind of ordinary mindfulness. Even chopping a wood could be quite enjoyable. You can relish chopping a wood, as long as you don't have to chop whole day, I suppose. But you never do. You never chop wood whole day. You only chop wood in the moment that is now. So most people say, no, I can't be mindful whole day, Yes, you don't have to be mindful whole day. You just have to be mindful just now. So most people try make it as it's a difficult work to load. When you truly develop the mindfulness, you develop calmness, and when you develop calmness, you actually develop not calmness in the future or the past. You develop calmness in this very moment. You know, you can't chop a lot of woods now. You know, and so you don't have to worry about a lot of wood that you don't have to chop. So most of the time, mindful means you are present. You're present, and you're not in the past, nor in the future. How do you know you're in the past? You have no guilt or resentment, and this is what the calmness does. It just avoids all those things. And if it's not in the future, no worry, anxiety, and all that. Your mind is completely present. It has the full kind of, I would say, precision and a resolution of a mind. When your mind is there, sometimes amazing, you know, the things that your mind can focus and clarity with which it can yield it's quite amazing. That is when your mind is not in forwarding something in of the future, no playing back the past. There's no real problem if you're mindful now. The problem of the past is in the past, you know. And maybe you need a companion to walk to the past, because I mean, the rest of the people wouldn't be going with you. Sometimes we find quite a few people who are willing to walk with us to the back, to the past. And those people who walk to the past are not mindful. That's when they become illiterate. Then they don't reach the present moment, which is a really wonderful moment, and then they lose that to the guilt or resentment of the past, to a thing of the past, and therefore they're not present. So that's what I mean by they're not calm enough to know. Therefore, they become agitated by something of the past or what is of the future. So therefore, the type of mindfulness that we need to cultivate is that the ripple effect that this one person has to his or her circle of concerns. When he has not been mindful, this circle of concern has been circle of harm. One has actually harmed them, not benefited them. When one becomes mindful, this circle of concern could become circle of benefit. And so therefore, when a person is mindful, not only his own ability to practice mindfulness cheers him or inspires him, but also the positive effect that he or she might have to other people make yourself enjoy the dint of the mindful act. Because how do you know? People are much kinder towards you, you know. Even if they are being a little bit not kind, you see they're kind. How about that? You know, even they're a bit aggressive, you see something different in that. Oh, this really, he means that very well for me. You know, you always have this kind of special retina that sees. This time you're looking and seeing something. This time you have a new eyes that begin to see the kindness in their intention. And as a result of that, what they say doesn't distract you. See, now you're reading their heart. Now you're beginning to focus the goodness in the person, and because of that, those little things that they were not careful to say, it doesn't really worry you. He means it very well, so to speak. So you have capacity to essentialize, extract the goodness of the person. Your mind is able to recognize, and it's just like distilling the essence of the goodness of the person. You don't get, that's why the wholeness of the person will be perceived. You know, like when you're in a very powerful, loving mood towards somebody. When your lovingness towards someone is very strong, then whatever they do, you are very, very tolerant. You're very compassionate. You're quite willing to take them. So mindfulness is a modern term for love. You know, you don't know how to practice love and how to make it work unless you have mindfulness. Most people practice love, but they get hurt. They are victims of love. How come? You know? I mean, how can love can be the perpetrator of our suffering? When very definition of love is to promote happiness, why are people suffering? Because there's love between the two. because they don't know how to practice mindfulness. Because of that, they assumed expression of their love become more of a cause of their suffering. They become more cause of their suffering than cause of benefiting other people. Loving kindness is to promote happiness of other people. Most people's expression of love is wanting happiness for oneself from the other. So this is why craving and resentment and these things are cause of suffering. These things doesn't allow the mind to be calm. So it doesn't allow the mind to become calm, which means cause of mindfulness is not generated. Because of that, how could love make people happy? If there's a genuine loving kindness, it should continue, increase our happiness. The fact that someone loved you, as the time goes on, your happiness increases because they still continue to love you. You know, your happiness should increase. But that's not possible when we are not mindful. So that's why mindfulness is better a word that we should practice than looking for love, you know. Look for mindfulness, then love. Good thing about that, when you look for love, you look someone else. Look for somebody else who might give that to you. And you might even make yourself believe you found that. And now you have to make sure they continue to give you treat the same way, don't you? You know? How can you ensure that someone continue to love you the way you could not keep your mind on focus on one thing for so long? How could you make sure that someone continue to love us? See, it's a very recipe for disaster. To look for love. But to look for love, mindfulness is a recipe for happiness. Recipe for happiness. Even when somebody didn't love you, and then they told you they don't love you at all, you really think they loved you. Because they told you the truth. So when they told you the truth, you feel happy. So you're not confused. You're not deceived by this. So when they say, I don't love you anymore, you're happy. Very good. See, you're mindful. Ready? See, you're not mindful. Your happiness comes from not from their giving this or that, but of your awareness. They can't make me happy. If I'm not mindful, how can they can make me happy. If I'm mindful, even when they reject me, I'm happy. I'm become free. You can say, how do you become happy? You become free. Because if they say, I loved you, almost like they say you are trapped. So it's bad news, really. But if a person who's mindful, of course, wouldn't say it like that. You know, that's the extreme. That's the extreme. Of course, if somebody say love you, you appreciate their kindness, but you just have to be careful whether that's possible or not. So just in case their love is not permanent. then you know how to not upset yourself or disappoint yourself. See, you happen to be mindful, because there have been quite a few things in life that never stayed the same. And so to hold something impermanent and permanent is a cause of suffering. No. Mindfulness is mindfulness of impermanence. Everything is impermanent. Yeah, it's fact. It's not making up, you know. So mindful of means fully aware. The mind is fully aware of the fact. It's not some kind of belief, not kind of some fiction. You're fully aware that everything is impermanent. And how could someone's love to you be permanent? And even if they look like permanent, you should really look carefully, blink your eyes and look. I got to look just carefully. They look very permanent, but I was told everything is impermanent. See, you're becoming mindful. You know, maybe you're losing your sight or not tasting well or something, sign of that. You realize, yeah, you used to enjoy them very well. Yeah. You can hear them very well, now you can't. Oh, yeah, you become mindful of impermanence of your hearing and sight and so forth. And it doesn't become a cause of your misery, it becomes cause of happiness. Oh, I must have used my eyeball so long. Yes, 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 you have used your eyeball. Last 52 years. That's a long time for a ball to be working, you know. How many balls in life you bought and worked that long? See, there's a lot of humility next time you're losing your sight. There's mindfulness, relishing the losing sight, but gaining a new insight. You know, you might be losing the physical sight, sight of the eye, but you're gaining an insight of a newer kind, and this is what I call relishing and mindfulness. You can, So therefore, even when someone rejects you or you're losing sight, because you're aware of impermanence of everything, that's a fact, and that is much more enjoyable wisdom and knowledge than you are grasping to phantom-like object as that is permanent when it's not. You know for yourself that things are changing, things are moving, things are just basically vanishing from your hand. People say, my life is crumbling. And that should be right. It's a cause of relishing mindfulness. When life is crumbling, you should be mindful. Oh, that's facts of everybody's life, And then there's not a feeling of poor me, I'm losing all these things. You see, you become free, So when you have this mindfulness, the motivation is very different. Motivation is not to grasp. Motivation is to almost like be a dispassionate observer of phenomena that is fleeting before your eyes. It's really good to know moving things as moving things, because you wouldn't jump onto it. Only when you think the train is stationary, you try to get in, don't you? And when the train is moving, please don't jump in. It's not safe. So a lot of people are grasping and clinging onto things that are moving and wanting it to be stationary. And a mindful person is careful. He knows that to jump on moving train is not safe. And therefore, he wait until the train do stop. Maybe it will only stop for 1 minute, but he do have cause to wait for that. These days, in all these electronic trains, you can't just hop onto a train just because it stops. You have to wait until the door opens. Sometimes the train stops, the door wouldn't open, So you might hit yourself on the door. See, mindful. Just because train stop doesn't mean you should jump onto it. The door has to be open, and people mustn't be coming out. I'm sure. It's simple. Seems like very simple. Now the next is the benefit of mindfulness. The benefit of mindfulness is quite enormous, really. It makes your day. Even whatever went wrong doesn't really matter. So long as you're mindful, it makes up for everything. If you have difficulties, it's because you have been mindful, not been mindful that day. Not because something went wrong. But even going wrong is only our way of saying what is wrong and what is right. Even though it didn't go something exactly as you planned, but if you're mindful, you will learn heaps from that. You have learned heaps from that. Then things went very well. You thought things went very well, but you didn't learn a thing. See, the whole idea of mindfulness was look, see, learn, and change, you see. But if things went exactly as you planned, you didn't learn very much. But so, they say, expect the least expected. And when you do that, what it does is it tests your attachment or aversion to things. When something happens unexpectedly, that mindful person is always expecting the unexpected. So he couldn't be disappointed, He hasn't made an appointment with the disappointment because he knew that things will be quite different from what they call in modern management discourse, a contingency plan, they call it. Well, mindfulness is the best contingency plan there is. I don't know what other things are, contingency plan that works, You know, if you have no mindfulness, what is contingency plan? Plan A, plan B, plan C. How do you know that all of them will work? If we have mindful, it just overpowers everything that goes. So if you were to say that, how do you know that your mindfulness is increasing? The function of the mindfulness is there's an increase of your resilience. There's an increase of discipline, and as a result of that, your strength, overall strength to change. Because when we say look, see, learn, and change, meaning to look means you have to focus, be calm. And then seeing means you are learning something. So to do that, you have to have the resilience, the function. So mindfulness is not a thing, it's what you do. And it's in the doing that we talk about mindfulness. It's not doing, is not mindfulness. You know, when you meditate, for instance, when you formally train to meditate, you're learning to do mindfulness. Learning to watch your thoughts, your feeling. You might watch your breath. You learn to do the mindfulness, watching the breath coming in and staying for a while in the body, and out it goes. If you follow that couple of rounds, you can see mindfulness is a thing you do, you know, a thing you do. And thing you do means you conjoin your mind with what you do, that's watching the breath. Or if you're chopping the wood, if you're mindfully, and your concentration, your execution of the effort, the physical effort, and all of those will be that much more, I would say, better. So means resilience, meaning you are able to, I would say, unleash a force that is not available when you're not mindful. When you're mindful, it's almost like a very strong, ever-ready kind of resilience. They talk of ever-ready battery, you know. I think mindfulness is ever-ready mental battery. You know. If you do daily meditation, you are charging. You're charging the battery. It's good to have a charger, isn't it? You know, what have you bought as a machine without a charger? Nothing, you know. People, what are people doing daily? They are charging their mindfulness. You know. So that's why mindfulness in discourse requires people to train formally to spend some, even if it's a minimum of 15, 20 minutes, they should learn to develop a form of activity that is actually mindful. That might be just watching your breath coming in and just follow the instructions of, such as thinking something positive when you inhale, and then enjoy that when you're holding the breath, and then exhale and release some thoughts and feelings that were really a little bit unsettled. Just let them go. If you do that a couple of rounds, and you do get to do that like good 20 minutes a day, you will really find yourself recharged. Particularly before a thing or before the whole day you can do, you will find yourself, whatever you set out to do, much better. You're much more careful, you know, because you've got a good cause. You know, when you've got a good cause, you will do it very well, you know. And as a result of that, the benefit of that, to be able to benefit from mindfulness, you've got to first do the beneficial thing. Not everybody has ability to incorporate mindfulness straight away with everything they do. Therefore, mindfulness itself becomes a thing to do. And that's that term that you do mindfulness itself is called meditation. Now, there are lots of, however, different types of meditation people promote, but generally they should all point to the direction of calming the mind and crystallizing your mind to develop a greater degree of clarity, and you're discerning and seeing and knowing the knowingness of the mind, and as a result of that, it knows how to change. Because when you're aware, what you have to change from and what you have to change to is very clear. But when you're not knowing, you don't know what you have to change from, let alone change to. So you don't learn. You know, how could you learn when you don't know what to change to? And from this habit or these thoughts or these feelings to that thought, that feeling. So you've got to be really, really focused. It's like a very, very strongly charged motivation. So when a person trains mindfulness, there's an increase of his resilience. increase of his tolerance, increase of his generosity in the language and the thoughts and feelings, and a discipline, and a particularly discipline, that a person actually does give himself a time daily to develop mindfulness. Because he knows during the time that he trained the mindfulness, like in meditation, he may not even enjoy it because he has yet to learn it. But the ability that one gains from that, benefit of that, then flows into other areas of life throughout the day. And then you can really see the benefit is flowing other areas. Even though at the very beginning, to make a discipline to do the meditation or formal mindfulness training that one does is rather tedious and quite demanding, and might even be boring to some people, because they have yet to benefit from the effort. Once you receive the benefit quite a few times, and then you find your dedication to put that time and discipline will be well rewarded. And so the benefit of meditation, mindfulness, has to be tasted first. So we've got to give a try to practice mindfulness formally. When we say relish, means you've got to enjoy. You've got to see the benefit of it. Benefit is not only now, but also of your perception, of thoughts, opinions, feelings about things that happen in the future or did not happen in the past, rather. And then you almost like the space that you have of the past. There's a lot of people who have a lot of baggage of the past. And the benefit of the mindfulness is not only they are putting a lot of discipline, but as a result of that, is slowly clearing away all this past. And you're almost like letting go. You're slowly releasing a lot of wrong holdings. And as a result of that, you're healing, you're making peace with your past, your people, in fact, your mother, in fact, your brother, in fact, and your best friend, in fact. You're able to make peace. As a result of your mindfulness training, you're now able to have made lots of peace. And you don't have the same thoughts and feelings anymore, because you have learned to slowly heal them, basically. You have made soft. You have they call, even in the cloth washing, they don't only give you the detergent to wash, there's a fabric softener, You see? You have to soften your mind, mind softener. All of a sudden your past and events that happen in the past, you have a lot of softening feeling towards them, a lot of lovingness towards them, not a resentment at all. You can see the foolishness of it. And however hard it had been in the past, now you know the cause of doing daily meditation is so great, because it makes you to heal and reconnect with your loved ones in a enormous way, because you have only one mother, and if you're not making peace with her, no wonder why you feel sad and depressed and so forth, as an example, for instance. A person then begin to make peace with her, and then as a result of that, the benefit is by doing meditation early in the morning or whatever, all of a sudden the situation between her and her mother's almost like resolved. You couldn't believe. You all almost can jump up of the seat and say, I'm free. You sure can do that. Yeah, not only you relish mindfulness, but benefit of it is enormous. It's like you had to hit the jackpot. Even if you won a lotto, but that wouldn't give you that happiness. That'll give you a lot of worries, a lot of anxieties, a lot of headaches. Now everybody wants to become your friend. Some distant cousins is phoning you because they heard that you won lotto or something. but if you become mindful, it just slowly, all of the problems that your mind previously have accumulated slowly is falling like a debris. And your mind is clearing those things and making peace with them and peace with yourself. As a result of that, your whole world is renewed. People want a second chance in life. Second might be not just a second to the first, but it's a better one. Lots of people give them a second chance in relationship and all that, but no, never better. Because we have not become more mindful. If we become more mindful, it will be better, definitely better. Then not only we are more appreciative of the people in our present situation, but even more forgiving of those we have parted in the past. See, the benefit of mindfulness is then not only you relish the situation now, but make peace with the past. And therefore, you're not haunted by past. And therefore, your ability to be different and learn and change, remember, learn and change, definitely have changed. And therefore, you're much more tolerant, much more generous, and less judgmental, and therefore more calmer. If you're noticing that, noticing this, the function, this is what we call function, is benefit. It's no point talking about something that doesn't benefit. That's why our inspiration in this talk comes from the teachings of the Buddha, enlightened one. He said, mindfulness is blissful and mindlessness is not. It's quite different. One is blissful and other is not. Is that the difference is that, it's so when a person wanted to practice mindfulness, not only he does so by seeing the cause, purpose of whom or her, or, whom or one or many people, they're quite enormous. If you have a small little half a dozen people that immediately help, benefits you if you did good something, or immediately get hurt if you did something wrong. Now it doesn't stop there. Those 6 people who you get be able to benefit, each of them has 6 people. So we are a community, remember, we have ripple effect. One terrible thing happen in one place, everybody get affected. One good thing somebody does, we all get enchanted by that. So therefore, we have a good cause to be mindfulness. It's not a selfish practice, but most people do misunderstand that meditators are selfish people. They just sit up there themselves and go away all the time and lock away in the room or whatever. They do misunderstand, but we have to understand the misunderstanding. Until we have returns, good returns from those practices, of course they have reason to think that they are rejected or we are not doing things for them. But wait until we bring the goodies. If they're beginning to see us more humanity and kindness, then they say, oh, I'm glad. And then some people say, their wives say, go, retreat, go. Because they realize the wife has come back home a little more calmer, a little bit more gentle and compassionate. Yes, then definitely she has found herself. She's found herself, and as a result of that, she has learned and to change. She's changing her attitude about various things, including immediate members of the family. And then lots of people are not making peace and friend with quite a lot of immediate peoples. They have a lot of strangers in their family. Mindfulness is befriending. Befriending those who we have labeled as strangers or someone who we have differences. The one that is really most alien to us is our mind. If you really practice mindfulness, you would be amazed how much there is to that we know and that we don't know the mind. How many things we do so unconsciously, and as a result of which, how karmically that has become habituated, and how much harm or negative effect it has as a result of that. So the more we come to know our mind, the more we become knowing. That's because why? Mind is, they say, mind is not in the mind. Mind is clear and empty. This clear means ever knowing. You're able to know. So when you become mindful, the good thing about that is when you become mindful, then the application. Now we can say, how do you apply mindfulness? The application are physical, verbal, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. As a result of that, when you become mindful, then the emotional quality, such as love, that we like to find love, we like to be able to be loving to people. And if you have an ability to do something lovingly or say something lovingly, think something lovingly, then the outputting that is done physically and verbally would be just as carefully, and therefore done carefully. You know, when you have outputted something carefully, it doesn't injure or harm anyone, and because it was done, the application means now it is applicable. It's not just a theory. It's like in linguistics. Applied linguistics is different from theoretical linguistics. Linguist theorists only talk about theory of language, but they hardly speak one. But applied linguistics, they didn't spend a lot of time in the books, but they speak quite a half a dozen languages, and if they were asked to talk about the theory of the language, they don't know how to explain, but they actually do it very well. Very different, you see. All of a sudden, the mindfulness is now flowing in your deeds, in your action, and then you realize, because they say action speaks louder, Yes, then whatever we do has benefit. The thing we do will benefit people, because lots of people do lots of things, but this is what I mean by when people try to do things just to finish, just to say for the sake of finishing, they don't put any heart into it. They don't put into real care into it, and then even though they spend time 8 hours doing that, the benefit to the people who use it is not that great. But people who put lots of heart and lovingness with which they do, then the benefit of that will be quite a lot. And that's why the application of mindfulness is heartfulness, is kindness, is kindness. So then you realize, even the greatest faith of world religious tradition, however much they promote kindness and compassion, but those which does not promote mindfulness, they don't know what they're talking about. You can't impose kindness on people without teaching how to. Like people say they love God, or you have to love God or something. They haven't even thought about the word love. If you love someone, you're promoting their happiness. So to love God means you try to promote God's happiness, as He was not able to make Himself happy. It should be quite a sacrilege thing to say, really. God needs our love, Without that, He's a bit lonely. You see, there's no real thinking gone into this idea of if you're mindful, then it naturally brings your heart involved. That as a result of that, what you do, even if you do something, in old days people did everything by hand, and then everything when they do with the hand is very mindfully done, and the benefit is enormous. Everything that's done by machine is machinefully done. So that which is done mechanically done doesn't have a lot of benefit. It's just mass-produced thing, because there's a lot of. But people who do with hand, they really put a lot of heart into it, and the benefit will be greater. So that's what the application of mindfulness is. If we have to say, not only we practice meditation and mindfulness, we feel happier ourselves, we bit much positive, but what we do with things and people have better benefit, much more lasting benefit to other people. Lasting benefit. Therefore, physically we become more mindful, verbally and mentally. Verbally, we become much more careful of our words and language, and then we might even be mindful enough to promise not to use such words. Unless some given occasions that warrants it, I wouldn't use these words. You will instead learn to use something alternative. This is responsibility. Remember, person becomes linguistically responsible as why he chooses to say these words instead of that, and therefore we rather pause until the good word comes. And therefore, the mindfulness person is allowed to be a bit slower. If people say you are slow, you should thank them for. Speed kills. People who think they're smart and they're speed, they're not pausing. See, therefore, they have no time to examine their thoughts, feelings, and they said something and they realized their best friend is upset and never going to talk to ever again. Yes, because we were not mindful what we're saying, who we're saying, why we're saying, what is there to gain by saying this. Mindful person always looks at not only the present state of circumstances that prompted something, but still see the veracity of using such words, and therefore he applies mindfulness. He applies mindfulness in the given time. And as a result of that, he has tolerance. Even though he has to tolerate the distress there is, but he doesn't jump into this false promise of benefit by lashing out something. He knows there will be no benefit in doing that. And therefore, he knows exactly to find the ability to change themselves. So a mindful person will always find something to change and improve. You know? Even if he did say something wrong, he quickly go and apologize. You know, mindful person. You know, it doesn't mean you will totally be perfect every day. But even if you said something, or did something a little bit mindless, but quickly you come to your senses and say apologize. And it's fixed already. All of a sudden, it's friend again, so to speak. That mindless person not only says something wrongly, does something, and then he still thinks he said it right. And then he allows that to haunt himself later, and then that makes even greater reason for the person to be hurt and resentful towards us. So the karma accrues demerits, you know, not just on weekends, you know. See, negative karma accrues demerit every moment, not just on weekends. You see, they don't know what they're talking about, you know. They say only on weekend, if you do something wrongly, then there's a demerit point. I think mindless action has double demerit. It doesn't matter when. So you see, the mindfulness is not a thing, not a belief, not some foreign idea. It seems quite a thing that you've been doing quite a lot of time, even unconsciously. Now you realize that, oh, it's a thing, you actually consciously go and do it, and the more consciously you do it, the better benefit it will give to me or to give to those. Therefore, it's an application. How do you know the mindfulness applied? You find your work, what you do in your everyday life, you know, you're much happier. Firstly, you respect, you have a lot of respect for the work you do. There's a lot of, and therefore you find whatever you're doing is you're contributing to the society and community, and therefore you put a lot of your heart into it, do as carefully as you can, and cooperate with those people you work for or work with, and you become mindful. So all of a sudden, your work situation becomes much more mindful, because as a result of that, you realize if you have taken on whatever you have taken on, you do them lovingly, not with some kind of resentment, or do it with happily, because if that's need to be done, that's the very purpose we are there, you know. And otherwise, we will fit into the 4%. You know, we want to be unemployed and called unemployed, have a label on the forehead called unemployed. Just walk up and down a civic, you know, like a zombie. You know, and that doesn't look like mindful to me. Look like zombiness. Canberra is blessed. We don't have that many people. Our population is smaller. But a lot of people who are not doing anything useful with their time, and they get little sort of welfare from some sources, and then they completely make themselves useless, you know. And yes, there's no benefit. If you're not doing something useful, you have reason to feel bad, because you're not even doing anything. You got 2 feet, and so that's why one has to learn how to make use of one's own time. When one is able to benefit by applying one's effort in a given situation, then there's a lot of happiness with whatever we do. We are firstly very thankful that we have a job, never mind what. And then you will be even more grateful to the employers, and more grateful for those people who you work with, work for, and so on. Then the mindfulness is all of a sudden creates a very appreciation of your workplace, and it will create a whole attitude about work. Because if you spend 8 hours every day going to that place to do work, you might as well make good use of yourself. And if you go there so that you can take time off any time, you can't wait to have the weekend or you can't wait to have the holiday, you obviously are burning yourself. It's not mindfulness. It's just like, it's almost like trying to get away from it as much as possible, and there is no really lovingness with which the person attends herself to the work he does. So a mindful person, if he has become mindful, not only do the formal thing, but what he does, he develops a lot of self-esteem, and I suppose positive confidence of ourselves. What I do is needed. I'll do it very lovingly and carefully, and I shall cooperate with other people, because who will ask me to do this? And if someone asks you to do this, that's good, because that's what you're employed for. You know, otherwise, why do they want to have you in the first place? You know, if they don't have the position, then you're not needed anywhere. Not because you are wonderful, but because they need a job to be done. We are nothing unless we are needed by other people. So why, if people ask to do this and do that, we should be delightful. Oh, of course, by all means, but only mindfully I can do a few things. You know, you don't snow your mind thinking, oh, I can't do this, I can't do this, not again, not again. You know, you can only do one thing and just focus on that. And I learned to do this quite a bit these days. People say, oh, Lama, you're so busy. I say, no, I'm not busy, I'm talking to you. You know, they think, they start to think busily for me, you know. I couldn't believe that. I don't have a mind to expand that far in the future, or whatever, or in the past what I did, or I can't do much anyway. You know, I'm not fixer of the world problems. I just, you try to just stay where you are, just stay in your station, and be contented with that. You have a job and do that well. If you can't do it, then have a humility to reduce into 4 days a week. You know. If your life situation requires not more than that, then just do 4 or 3, and then stay contented. But don't just sleep in bed, just for the sake of not doing anything. Mindful person always finds himself useful, that he can do something. He's not in himself all the time. He's always thinking, what can I be of benefit to others? And that's what I mean by the mindful person becomes very creative and functional and beneficial to other people. As a person who has developed this mindfulness, not only physically he will change, like they talk about physical things, people change. Mindful person, they say sleep, eat, and exercise, and there's a lot of good things that he will learn, that his life is very precious, and it's not getting stronger or fitter by days. It is probably, had its time, and therefore he uses his physical energy by what it eats and what he drinks. He knows how to abstain from things what he shouldn't have, and therefore he has mindfulness of not eating and drinking certain things, and also mindful to what he does and what he doesn't do, in terms of exercise, or how long he sleeps, and how early time he go to bed, and what time he gets up. And he has a certain priority. What the body is not designed to lie down all the time, because otherwise you wouldn't have a feet, you know. But because we have feet, it means you've got to be on your feet and do things, you know. If we lie down at all, it's so that we can go on our feet and do something useful. So person therefore have a certain, I would say, expectation of himself as what he does with his body, to this body, by this body, and to other bodies too, and therefore respectful of other beings' life, however different they are. You still respect other people's life as much as you respect your life. So the mindful person respects other living beings, their lives, however small they are. So it's not a kind of a puritanical view that you shouldn't kill, or you shouldn't do this if you're this. It doesn't mean that that people should be this, not to kill something. People should be mindful to not to kill anything. It's not a Buddhist thing that you don't kill. When there are lots of people who kill, but just they happen to be not mindless Buddhists. What's the benefit of having Buddhists when they're mindless? If the people are mindful, they don't have to be Buddhist. And then one good thing about that is they start to show respect to other living beings, and because they themselves cherish their life, and so they also try not to cause direct harm to other living beings' life. So that's the application of the mindfulness of physical body. And likewise, it goes with the speech, as I said before, and likewise with emotions. You become mindful of your emotion of sadness or loneliness. You just all of a sudden you look at loneliness, and you look at the loneliness, and then you think you're alone. That you don't like by yourself. A mindful person, if he's alone, he's really happy that he's alone, because when he's alone, he could do no harm. So he's safe. So if you're alone, it's usually very good, except if you're depressed or something, So emotionally also you don't feel lonely very long. As soon as you become mindful, loneliness is short-lived. When you're not mindful, your loneliness will be very long. Your sadness will last longer. Your resentment will be longer. Your craving will last longer. You don't know how to shorten those emotions, durations. They seem to have a control over you instead, because you have lost yourself. Mindless. We become so worried or so hurt. We just hurt, and then the hurt feeling is making it last long. Because you have other things to think about when the mind can switch on something and switch off something. We are so used to have lots of buttons to push, Maybe we should have put a couple of buttons on the face. On the right side, all the right buttons, left side, the wrong buttons, push everything like that. We're so used to pushing buttons to make things happen, I'm sure they say that when you're mindful, I'm sure the button you don't need to physically push. I think that neurologically they will open up the tracks. When you're mindful, they say that it lights up. When you're mindless, you just like lights that have been switched off. When you're mindful, everything lights up. All of a sudden, you switch on. And to feel this way and feel sad, you feel very short-lived. Even when you feel sad, when you become mindful, sadness is really good. Because then you see, oh, this is my sadness. How about other people's sadness? Oh, that's a lot more than mine. And your sadness become a catalyst for developing compassion for those who are worse off than your sadness. And then, see, your sadness become useful now. So you shouldn't reject yourself from being sad, You should, even you have a sad, good, make it good sadness. By mindfully feeling sad, for good, you qualify the sadness, Because sadness is not a taboo, in Buddhism. It's a really necessity for developing compassion. You couldn't become compassion without sadness, without suffering. So suffering is a great teacher. Suffering teaches us to develop mindfulness. So you don't shun and despise suffering if you're mindful. It's amazing. All of a sudden, the suffering and difficulties of life becomes a powerful object to focus, and then increase your compassion. Yes, your own suffering is overwhelmingly great when you think of yourself. But when you think of the other people and beings in different world, in different places, and just think about those, your particular situation is comparatively much lighter than their sufferings. And then your suffering developing mindfulness, your sadness become cause of great compassion, universalization of compassion. And this is what called all-pervasive suffering. Then you realize suffering is just everywhere. It's not just who has lost a partner or who has got a contracted illness or whatever. Even those who haven't contracted illness got lots of suffering. You know, and then your suffering doesn't become a cause of your negativeness, it becomes cause of your own positive. You can foster goodwill by your sadness. So mindfulness of sadness. Sometimes people say, "What are you doing?" "I'm developing mindfulness of sadness." Very good, you know. When Buddha's disciple complained to the Buddha, he got a headache, you know. Shariputra told Buddha that he had to give a miss to the session because he got a headache. Buddha said, "Oh, good. You should meditate on headache and come in." If you really carefully look into your little head, you know, little headache, you know, head is worried about a headache, you know. But if you think about the number of heads in the world and how many suffering there are, the little headache you have is just no comparison with anybody. And then your headache becomes a cause of a great rise of compassion. So mindfulness doesn't mean when you're doing wonderful things you better be mindful. Even when you have gone through some tough time, you can be mindful, and all of a sudden you're calm. You're calm, and as a result of that, you're more careful. You know, because when you're not careful, then you become very selfish. You know, take me out of here, get me out of here. Never mind what inconvenience you have to go through. But even if you're going through a lot of a headache, but what are you saying? Get me out of here, people said, you know. They're not considering what they have to do for you to get out of that place. You know? So people who are compassionate, people who are mindful, they realize their own headache or whatever it is quite tolerable, really. If you think about other people in what what kind of shoes they're wearing. If you try to put your feet in their shoes, I'm sure you are quite comfortable in your shoes. You prefer your shoes. Have you tried someone's shoes? You quickly take I like that, they wear my shoes. See, mindfulness lets you to know what it's like to be other. Because when we are so mindless, we become selfish, basically. When we become mindful, we become a little bit altruistic. All of a sudden, our heart opens, and in doing so, there's a good application of the mindfulness, and that we become a little bit more emotionally matured and emotionally secure. They talk of emotional intelligence, but I think you're talking about emotional security, really. You know, what's there about intelligence if you have no security? You've got to be able to hold it in a way so that you're not victim to that attachment to that emotions. Emotional security means emotions changes, and you have to be the author of that change. You shouldn't be a passive recipient of emotion. There's no emotion that is not us. Emotion is both what we do and what we feel. It's not what happens to us. See, most people think the emotion is something that came to them. When you're mindful of your emotion, you can see, if you're feeling sad, you say, "Oh, I thought that, that's where I got my sadness came from." You know, it's just like you push that button, one on the left side, this one. When you push the left one, yes. Who'd push my wrong button? Who didn't push your right button, you should say. Who didn't push your right button? You should have a right button, you know, next to the wrong one. Now, so having said that, now the next thing is obstacles to mindfulness. What are the obstacles to mindfulness? People who have difficulty developing mindfulness usually have obstacles. These are doubt. One is doubt. People who have a lot of doubt, having difficulty having faith, but have more faith in doubt, and that's the biggest obstacle. Their doubt is rather like double-pointed needle. You can't sew a cloth with a double-pointed needle. It's like a person could not make decision. He's very anxious, it's going wrong this way, and he's just sitting there holding the axe, but not end up chopping any wood. And then hold the axe for a while, and then drops the axe and goes inside the room, have some drink, comes back and looks at the axe, and he end up not chopping any wood. You see, doubtful people don't end up doing nothing really. So mindful people
needs to be cautious of doubt, particularly the negative doubts. And now, second obstacle is laziness. People who are lazy and idle and would not allow themselves to be mindful. Mindfulness is a rather like positive industry. It manufactures good things. You know, if one who's lazy, he hasn't opened the office. he hasn't switched the thing on. You know, so one who have fallen prey to laziness could not be mindful. You know, he will procrastinate, he will blame, he will find number of excuses, and therefore has a delayed number of things, and then even can't do anything because he's got to develop an addictive habit of being lazy. Mindful person has to be very much warned of the demerits of laziness. And carelessness too, because it's the opposite of carefulness. Person is careless. He doesn't mind. He doesn't care about the consequences of not doing it, and then he's not mindful. He's not mindful of what he should be doing. Therefore, he doesn't mind what he says or how he does, what he felt. He like what he want to do. He want his way, and he want his way is completely blindfolded. Whereas mindful person is a little careful, even though I like saying this, but what would it mean to them to hear this? And therefore he's careful enough to not to say that or not to do this, but instead to say this because he has to live with people. He need to rely on them as much as they need to rely on us. So carelessness is an obstacle to develop mindfulness. And distraction. Person is like, instead of chopping the wood, he's distracted. His mind is elsewhere. He's not there. He's not present. He's not here. His mind is thinking of something else. So to develop mindfulness, one needs to avoid distraction. And last of this list of obstacles is ignorance. Ignorance is rather unaware of the importance of mindfulness and unawareness of the disadvantage of unawareness and mindlessness. Now, when one has informed oneself, become more conscious of how important mindfulness is, and you begin to see lots of things in your life that are good in your life, they are all result of opposite of ignorance. What is opposite of ignorance? Knowledge. You know? Opposite of distraction, focus, concentration. Opposite of carelessness, carefulness. Opposite of laziness, diligence. Opposite of doubt, faith and confidence. Whatever you did do and have achieved something, they all came from employing the exact antithesis of these obstacles. And so therefore we had mindfulness. See, there was mindfulness. We did put our time and energy into certain things, we come out well. Because we did not fall prey to those obstacles with regard to that. Now it's just making it a little bit more holistic. Using that very mindfulness we use in certain areas of life, try to make it more holistically in relation to emotion, in relation to spiritual, in relation to physical, verbal, and psychological well-being. When a person practices that, then he overcomes these obstacles. Remedy for that, remedy for these obstacles are for doubt, you have to have faith, and so on. For laziness, you have to have diligence, and so on. So it's very easy to know what are the exact remedies for those 5 obstacles. And then what happens is when a person has cultivated these qualities, then he has changed. Then he has got quality of who is mindful. Who has a quality of mindfulness is no different from confidence. Person who has confidence, which is faith, because he used that remedy to overcome doubt, then he has a lot of self-esteem, and therefore he is able to respect others. One who has self-esteem actually learns to know to respect others. He knows that one who has emotional security in himself, he can acknowledge other people's virtues and qualities, and therefore he respects others for what they are. And even showing that respect to other actually increases his own goodness. The person who shows respect is not worse off, it's actually better off. you know. So because of that, a lot of humility. And humility is good confidence. Humility is not sort of, I can't do this, I cannot do this. The person who has a lot of confidence, like earthy, like an earth element, the person can develop these things. And then there's a lot of happiness. This is exactly what we're talking about, relish. Then there's a relishable life. Your life is good. You're so positive, you're so appreciative. Gratitude level of yourself is really good, you know. You know, they talk about gross domestic product. You know, you can see the gross gratitude product. You can see how much grateful you are every day. You know, you just increase your gratitude about your mother. Everybody's better in you. Everything you have is good. They don't have to be better. When you have mindfulness, they're already good already. And it's not the things that need to be changed. It's your mind has to be at that highest level of its potential. Then your son is better, son is good, daughter is good. Even someone with certain difficulties, they still are good. And you see the goodness in everything. Because now this is what we call qualities of mindfulness. It's not only you enjoy yourself, but everything else is enjoyable, relishable. You know, mountains, trees, road, the street, how they mark the streets. Yeah, even there you enjoy that. You go down the road, everything, oh, somebody thought through that. Oh, somebody thought through that. And then everything is, even chair design is very relishable. You just look at it, you're just relishing. You just look at the chair, or you look at the road, or you look at the door, they mark exit, and it's amazing. Someone really thought through so our well-being. We're very grateful for that. So the whole thing is therefore, there's a lot of happiness. You know, happiness is not something outside, that your mind is capable of seeing the goodness in object, and that is like a water element that really quench your thirst every day. You're constantly, every day you have water in your life. You know, if you don't have water, it's very difficult, is it? Yeah, if you don't have happiness, why live? Yeah, so happiness is more readily coming into your life, you know. So the water is happiness, yeah? Confidence is earth, right? Earth is very grounded. Water is very rush-washes. You have lots of fluidity. You have lots of fluid in your body. If you don't have fluid in the body will dry up. Like that person who has a lot of compassion, you know, to himself, most importantly. How can you push others to be compassionate to other people when we are not to ourselves? In fact, we are not happy is we have no compassion to ourselves. In fact, when we are happy is because we are compassionate to ourselves. You know, if we have to be kind to anybody, first has to be first person. So no, it's not bad to be kind to the first person, I would say. You know, how, if a person doesn't know how to be compassionate to the first person, how could we do that to the second person and the third person and the strangers? How could he could not? But only when he knows how to practice compassion to himself, then he's making peace with himself. So this is what I mean by relishing, you know, the medicine of mindfulness. Why it's medicine? Yes, drink of water is medicine to thirst. When you're drinking so much drinking but still thirsty, a lot of people, they drink 4 bottles but still thirsty. Yeah, still thirsty. Why? They have no real happiness. They're drowning themselves with alcohol, still thirsty. They're drowning themselves and go to the toilet, still thirsty. Can I have another one? Another one. He couldn't even find his way home, you know. Lot of fluid goes through the body, but the person is thirsty as ever. He is not enjoying anything. But one who has happiness, is truly water, truly conscious thirst. So he's got a water element. And as a result of these qualities of earth and water is like you're supported by 4 elements together very well. Your body will be really healthy. Psychologically, emotionally, when you have these 4 emotional elements, emotional elements are now cultivated by mindfulness. Because of that, there is what we call joy. The joy is fire in you. Joy keeps you really. Joy is a amazing sense of gratitude, a sense of like fire burns things and gives light. Likewise, your joy burns all the fuel of your misery or suffering, and it just makes you to meaningful to live any single day. Every single day is a wonderful day. And you decide that. You decide first thing, it's going to be a good day. Going to be a meaningful day. It's just first thing is the first resolution of the day, and therefore passion, and it is, I would say, determination with which you go out of the house and do things, or in the house, whatever it's, there's a degree of that energy. Energy is rather like the fire. It's blazing. Have you ever seen the fire going down? Fire always flames up. Likewise, a person's energy level is really good when he's mindful, because he knows what he had to do. He's got responsibility, he's got expectation, he's got discipline, he's got confidence. As a result of that, it warms him up. Yeah, he's needed. He's needed by people, he's needed by the community, and as a result of that, he's useful. He's useful for his existence. And he'd never have any time to be sad or depressed or suicidal. Suicidal people or depressed people are because they don't have joy. They don't have fire element. Their fire element is going down. They're watering it down all the time. They're throwing something onto it. They're pushing down. They're rejecting themselves. They're attacking themselves. And then, of course, they feel like on fire, like cold. They're cold towards themselves. If somebody is cold towards you, you worry, But we are cold towards ourselves, What could we do, So, fire element is joy. There's an amazing sense of gratitude and a contentment. Everything what you have becomes better, looks more beautiful and valuable than previously you thought when you have the fire element. That's a relishing mindfulness. Have you ever eaten a raw food without cooked food is really delicious. Some are okay as a raw, but most have to be cooked. So if you don't have fire in yourself, how can you enjoy all this raw food in the fridge? Yeah, a lot of raw products, but not cooked, not ripened. Fire is a maturity, maturity in yourself. You're an adult, not only physically, emotionally you're adult. You're a spiritually adult person. You're not a child. You're not this needy person anymore. One who's able to give is not needy. One who's able to give, who has the power to give, who enjoy more by giving than keeping. That's a maturity of the fire. And the fire matures food, cooks food. Joy makes our existence purposeful and meaningful. It is not the needy person who wants something from others, no longer anymore. You have no doubt you will get what you need, because everything you have came from others anyway. So you couldn't be asking too much. So only thing that you need to do by getting something is to pass it to other people. So the joy comes from giving. Giving emotionally, spiritually, materially, whatever. Person who's not giving to others is often miserable. It's called miser. Miser person is able to miser, so-called miserable. He's able to stay miser. A person who's generous is exactly opposite, really. So this is relishing mindfulness, in a medicine of mindfulness. Medicinality of this is, exactly opposite of that is poison. Poison makes you sick. And you've got to know what thoughts, what feelings, what mental doing, and what attitudes makes us unwell and unhappy. And now you try to heal them by the right kind of mental, I would say, mental properties. Mental technology. This is technology we're talking about. I didn't show you any machinery here. You have it intact in you. You've got to identify the workings of your machinery, of your mind. It's not an imported one from Scandinavia I'm talking about, or from Japan. We're talking about home-built mind. Everybody got one. It's just whether we have identify ourselves. Maybe we should, when we are born, we should give in a little booklet, a manual, how to operate mind. How to operate mind, you know. You have lots of buttons, a lot of do's. First you have to unpack it. I can see there's lots of buzzing going on here. Oh, I'm going to write that book. I'm going to write that little book on how to operate mind. You know, as soon as you're born, before you get this family payment thing, they should send this little booklet for the baby arrives, you know. You should say the mind operation payment. Very good. And everybody must go through that schooling, how to operate mind. This is a very good idea. Where's the education minister? You should think like this, you know. So you have, and then there's a lot of humility. Humility. Calm, mindful person has a lot of humility. It's just like air element. Air element is discreetly working behind the scene. You don't see it, but it's right in the fire, right in the water. Even the water flows is because there's air. It's flames because there's air, and so forth. So your humility is really good. See, arrogance is very dangerous. Mindful person sees the safety, benefit of my humility, danger of arrogance, danger of selfishness. Therefore one becomes mindful of selfishness. One is wary of mindfulness. People say, what is the medicine, mindfulness that you relish as a medicine? Because it keeps you away from the poison of selfishness. And what happens is, if you have any problem with anyone, it's not because we have problem with them. It's because we don't know the demon of selfishness or self-cherishing. Mindful empowers us to see subjectively how much that operates in us when we are not conscious. What makes us go unconscious is that demon, that darkness. And when we cultivate the mindfulness, it's just like when you switch on the light, the darkness is dispelled. You know? And when we become mindful, and then we learn to be a little bit selfless. And whether it's our thoughts, our feelings, emotions, particularly when we output them. When we are that, then there's amazing careful person. There's always a cause by which we are being mindful. And it's really compassion. It is compassion. You can't make people become compassionate unless you teach them how to be mindful. When they come to their senses, they will know how to be compassionate. Otherwise, you can't push them onto as a virtue. You know? So that's why mindfulness I'm not saying that we haven't enjoyed already mindfulness. We probably have been relishing quite a bit in our life when we are with ourselves. When we've been stranded and left or behind, and when the mind left us, you know, of course, we've been like an orphan. You know, you haven't got your parent looking after you, of course, you feel orphan. So if there is a sadness in us, it's because we have been orphaned by mindlessness. And so with this in mind, what happens is how to relish the medicine of mindfulness is always see your practice of mindfulness as a prevention of hurt and injury, not as anything but how we can be a bit more careful and therefore useful, and as a result of that, harmless. And we all have the potential. That potential in Buddhism is called Buddha nature. Buddha means awakened one. Awakened one is who's aware. And that awareness is mindfulness. You know? And when we're mindful, we are aware what to say, what to do, how not to do. And always there's amazing array of choices when you're mindful. Amazing. When we're not, there's only one. That's it. You know, you're stuck, and you've got to react with that. And then there's amazing humility and amazing abundance of what choices you do. And when you're mindful, the choice is very obvious. The others which are there, you can see why you're not doing that. Why you're not doing A, B, C. Why you choose D. Why you choose E. You can see why clearly, because the cause is very clear. Cause is clear means you're not so righteous. It's not a question of you being right and other being wrong. It's a question of how to protect the wrong, how to protect the one who has gone wrong and anguished without making them feel hurt or rejected. Now, that is mindfulness. A lot of the time our society, even legal system, completely designed to punish the one who's wrong. And only if we were right, we could have much better society as we go. But no, there's no real actual training for people how to be. So this is where our multicultural nature of society, such as Australia, where we're more open-minded, learn from other cultures and societies and tradition, we can begin to practice, learn from others, and very, very insightfully. And so you are coming here tonight, you have done that. Thank you very much.